Will this Middle Eastern giant, who's rumored to be quietly stacking $40 billion worth of Bitcoin, cause yet another short squeeze? And just how valid are these rumors? Well, let's dive in because we've got a lot of smoke burning around the UAE and Dubai as well, because a lot of rumors are circulating that Saudi Arabia or the UAE has been quietly stacking upwards of 300K Bitcoin, which would be 30 billion to 400K, or to 30 to, 300 to 400K Bitcoin, which would be 30 to 40 billion dollars. So all of it needs is that Bitcoin strategic reserve to be signed over. But if you really break it down here, right, we've got the short squeezes that have happened in the past, right? Bitcoin has been one of those things that has seen massive amounts of price run up here in the past. And here's my man Willy Woo breaking it down all for you, right? Ooh, that rhymed unintentionally there. But the first great supply shock, as Willy Woo lined it out here with some great graphics here, I'll even zoom in on it a little bit for you, was caused by the Silicon Valley tech bros. The second, Michael Saylor, quote unquote, rediscovering Bitcoin here. And the third supply shock is the MSTR vacuum cleaner exchanging other companies and the copies of more countries, starting to stack secret. And look, he said it's a secret here. But just how valid is these rumors of Saudi Arabia stacking Bitcoin? Well, let's dive into it here with, a pretty valid source where, I'll pull up a quick little video for you guys where Novogratz is expressing what he is calling the potential of his friends knowing that they're stacking Bitcoin in Saudi Arabia.
And the reserve currency we've earned. And to need to back up the reserve currency is counterintuitive. And so, again, listen, if we get the Bitcoin reserve, and as a guy that owns a lot of Bitcoin, I will not cry. And if you see me crying, there'll be crocodile tears. I think Bitcoin heads to 500,000. Again, it's a whole different paradigm because it forces every other country in. Countries are already buying it. I've got a dear friend, the guy that actually turned me on to Bitcoin in 2013, who's in the Mideast right now. And he said he's never seen anything like it. He's convincing more people to buy Bitcoin in the 3 days he's been there than any time in his whole career. And they're huge pools of capital. And so we're seeing something global.
Now, let's break all that down here real quick, right? Novogratz says he has a friend that is in the Middle East, and he's seeing massive amounts of capital being dumped into Bitcoin from the Middle East. And just look at that. I mean, Novogratz, he's a Bitcoiner. He already said before this that he could see upwards of 500K Bitcoin price, Bitcoin USD exchange rate here. If that was strategic reserve, that would happen. And the amount of money that is being dumped in from the sidelines is absolutely like anything he's never seen before. So, yo, what is up, Dick McSaucy in the chat here? Love the name, man. Cracking me up here on a great Saturday. But let's dive back into this video and hear what Novogratz has to say.
Globally, when Trump advocated in Nashville that he was going to be a crypto president, a Bitcoin president, and now he's the president, let me tell you, other leaders heard that. And so I think we're strapping in for what could be an amazing rally.
I want to get back to your point on
So there you have it, right? Other nations are basically just checking in on what Trump is doing. They're looking and eyeing in onto what the United States is doing, and they're paying close attention. When Trump said that he wanted to be a Bitcoin-friendly president, they're not only looking at that as a potential for, hey, wake up, if they're going to be doing it, everybody else is going to be doing it, but also looking at much more than that, right? I mean, we've seen massive amounts of countries start to flip the script on Bitcoin and try to create a potential strategic reserve. I mean, I even had a little Twitter thread here today about all the how impactful Donald Trump has been. And we could kind of just go through some of that, right? So we've just briefly, we've had Russia propose that they've been looking at a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've had China now look at Bitcoin and see it as property. A Polish president is now looking at Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. Morocco changed on it. Brazil has proposed a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Canada has had several provinces look at a Bitcoin strategic reserve. The Czech Republic is changing taxation for long-term holders. Japan is looking at a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And these are just a few of them, folks. Like many, many more countries are starting to look at Bitcoin as a strategic reserve and kind of continue from there. But let's get back to the main purpose of this, right? Is Qatar or Saudi Arabia, accumulating Bitcoin on the sidelines here? We've had David Bailey of Bitcoin Magazine reveal that a top 5 Bitcoin holder is likely a nation, sparking speculation about whether it's Qatar or Saudi Arabia. I mean, at this point, a lot of people, as my friend Dick is saying here in the chat, I think everyone underestimates the amount of selling from OGs that will happen as we grind higher. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I think we're gonna have a lot of potential OGs selling off, but I don't think people are accounting for the amount of demand that we're seeing from nation states, right? I mean, I lined it out here earlier. All these nation states are going to be buying. And the thing is, when nation states buy, they have to have strong hands. Now, I wanted to talk about this a little bit later in the live stream, but let's dive into it now because I think that is pretty relevant to what Dick McSaucy is saying over here, right? So Trump is looking to create a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but how would that work, right? So if you go through here and go through Senator Lummis's plan of the proposal, it would be to acquire 1 million Bitcoin or about 5% of the total supply of the outstanding tokens. But the major component here is to hold it for at least 20 years. Now, all of these nation states will have some sort of quote unquote hodl policy. Now, the US is unique because they want to stack 1 million coins, but it's going to take place over 5 years. So that's going to be a strategic buy of 200K Bitcoin every single year. So that's going to be, lining out the cost basis. So they're going to strategically buy Bitcoin at a set rate, whether that's 5, 10 Bitcoin a day. They're going to be looking at how to break up that number every single day just to, avoid the volatility and everything like that. So, and then on top of all that, they're going to hold it for 20 years. And that's not the only country that's going to be doing that, right? I mean, the United States holding for at least 20 years. We're talking about, Czech Republic, for example, just passed a law that no taxation, but you have to hold it for 3 years. So I think that this is going to be a policy that's going to encourage the hodl mentality. And I think that, a lot of various policies that we've seen already as far as like taxation purposes make it more friendly for you to hold opposed to sell and try to make a buck because of the taxation purposes. Now with that, I think more potential tools to come to borrow against your Bitcoin are going to come forward, but I think that is time will tell on that one. Now let's dive back into what David Bailey is saying. And hey, BTC Moon Guy, what's going on here? We're diving in to what the potential, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are looking at about stacking in the background. So David Bailey has said, nations are increasingly added Bitcoin to reserves, shifting from the pilot mining from projects to large scale investments. And he's prompted a lot of conjecture since he said at least one nation at least one, has been actively buying Bitcoin and has been positioned itself among the top 5 holders worldwide. And now I think that that is extremely important, especially from somebody like David Bailey, who recently just had BTC Mina. So, there was a recent conference in Abu Dhabi. Why did they have that conference out there? Maybe it is something that is leading to the reasoning why is Abu Dhabi, whether it's Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or the UAE, one of those countries is potentially using Bitcoin in some way, shape, or form, whether that's stacking in the background or doing something else along those lines. So I think that it is an interesting, little thought experiment here as to why. But, one thing about the Bitcoin space is I always believe when there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's a lot of rumors circulating here as to the UAE putting in 40 billion worth of Bitcoin, nation state FOMO continuing to rack up here. And I think a lot of presidents, as we heard from Novogratz, are around, the country are looking at, what the United States is doing, how they're becoming more Bitcoin friendly, and so on and so forth. So what's going on, Patrick? Good to see you, man. Thank you for the kind words. I'm trying to rock it out for you guys here on this great Saturday. But, there is another reasoning why I think, when there's smoke, there's fire, right? I mean, we've had a previous, visit from the Emir of Qatar in El Salvador, right? So President Bukele was visited by the Emirate of Qatar here, and you can see, some of these pictures here. So, why is that significant? Obviously, we've got El Salvador, one of the leaders when it comes to Bitcoin, Bitcoin policy and everything like that, right? I mean, they recently just got an IMF loan and they seemingly bought more Bitcoin with that loan. So something I didn't really foresee happening here, but it is something where it is interesting to see that, shortly after, El Salvador was, or shortly after the the Emirate of Qatar was seen visiting El Salvador, we see a spike up in Bitcoin price here. And I think that that's what Willy Woo is lining out here, the third great supply shock. And that was back in September right here, right? So, I think a lot of the institutional wave and everything like that, these are some great captions from here from my buddy Willy Woo. And, this is kind of highlighting the potential for, this supply shock to occur. Now, there is, some rumors that of how much that they've been accumulating, and the UAE has been rumored to be accumulating 300 to 400K coins, which would double up what the US owns, right? So if you remember what I lined out here at the beginning, and I'll pull it up to review again, what would Trump's Bitcoin policy look like, right? It would get 1 million Bitcoin over a course of 5 years. So it would be buying 200,000 Bitcoin per year for 5 years. So if the UAE is stacking Bitcoin in the background, this is something where they would have double the amount of Bitcoin that the US would get. Now, the US already has about 200,000 seized coins. If they don't sell it off, they've been selling off during this, policy, or during this current administration where Biden's been selling things off. But here we can have the US potentially quietly stacking, or the UAE, excuse me, potentially quietly stacking. Now, the other unique aspect about this is that we've had a lot of pension funds start to, accumulate Bitcoin as well. And from this, right, if you look closely here, the world's largest sovereign wealth funds, right? We've got Norway, who's potentially been rumored to purchase Bitcoin. China, we've got a couple from China, but then we have Abu Dhabi here showing that they have, a massive amount of investment fund and investment opportunity here, sitting at nearly 1,000 or nearly $1 trillion, but just under that with $993 billion. And then, we've got some other Middle Eastern countries, including Qatar. So, there's a lot of money here sitting on the sidelines, waiting for a product to purchase or waiting for a way to purchase Bitcoin and seemingly to get in there. Now, I think that there's a lot of FOMO money on the sidelines, but we have seen a recent dip in the Bitcoin price here. So I think that this is, as they say, buy the dip here in Bitcoin land. It's a good buying opportunity. But why did this happen? I think it's happened because of the Fed's kind of bearishness when it comes to the amount of rate cuts that are going to happen in 2025. We saw this as a recent response. The Fed is sort of falling off the 2025, saying that inflation is still not under wraps. Usually when you see inflation not quite under wraps, you'll need something like higher interest rates in order to combat that. Now, with all that being said, the inflation and everything like that, when interest rates are cut, more money gets dumped into the risk on assets, which is, by traditional finance. That's what Bitcoin is considered currently. Now, I'll say this: when we start to get farther along, I think that it will become less of a quote unquote risk on asset, and we'll get farther along to this. But I think that there's a lot of things that Bitcoin and inflation have, that inflation has ruined. And one of those things is the health insurance industry. Now, if I were to tell you that you don't need health insurance, that I can help you find awesome doctors, negotiate bills, and fund those bills through a peer-to-peer funding platform, I think that, I would take that 10 times out of 10. And I've got the perfect solution for you. It's Crowd Health. You can join Crowd Health at joincrowdhealth.com, where you can go to join with a bunch of your peers. They've got a Bitcoin-backed company where you can just simply set up, meet with a specialist, see some good times for you, where you can sign up and see what is best for you and your family to get the healthcare that you need. Avoid all those doctors, avoid waiting in those lines, avoid the massive amounts of bargaining, and avoid all the bullshit that comes with, dealing with health insurance and everything like that. And join the movement when it comes to Crowd Health, and join me and some other peers, like-minded individuals who are all looking to find a better way to combat the healthcare issues that we have here in the United States. But the true power of Bitcoin that we all know is getting your Bitcoin off an exchange. I know that can be a very daunting task. So I've partnered with my fellas at the bitcoinway.com. So you can go to the bitcoinway.com/green candle. You can set up a free 30-minute consultation to see how they can help you with your needs. They've got people literally working around the clock. So no matter what time zone you're in, what place you're in the world, you can go and join the Bitcoin Way, where they can help you get your Bitcoin off an exchange. They can help you with a Plan B passport, and they can help cyberly protect your computer from any sort of cyber attacks. So I couldn't recommend this service more. Get it for your friends, your family, those who are intimidated of getting Bitcoin off an exchange, and get them to the beacon of orange light. And lastly, folks, just remember, when we're seeing this nation state adoption, you've already beaten them out, right? You're getting this news here and seeing that there's an arms race, theoretically, of Bitcoiner or of nation states trying to scoop up as much Bitcoin as possible. So I mean, at this point, how can you not be bullish with everything going on? So securely store your Bitcoin and get that squared away. And if you're joining me here, I appreciate you guys coming in. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I will see you guys all at the next one. Thanks so much for tuning in.